Imagine waking up one day and realizing the person you've always been wasn't truly you. Not because you were lying or pretending, but because from the start, you were never given the tools to understand your real self. You've made decisions, built a life, formed relationships, and yet, beneath it all, there's a quiet disconnection, a feeling that something essential inside you has been hidden or quietly erased. Carl Jung believed that most people don't just misunderstand themselves, they're afraid to meet who they really are. What if the identity you've carried through the world is more of a defense than a reflection? What if your thoughts, desires, even your personality are being shaped by unseen forces, old fears, social expectations, buried wounds? And what if true self-knowledge isn't about adding more, but dismantling everything that never belonged to you in the first place? You've probably felt it before. That eerie sense that there's more to you, something deeper, unspoken. But no matter how close you get, it slips just out of reach. Maybe you've searched in books, in therapy, in long walks, or late-night thoughts. You've tried to connect the dots, and still, the person in the mirror feels like a stranger, familiar, but somehow not fully known. You speak, but is it really your voice? You act, but is it your will? Or are you echoing someone else's expectations? For most people, knowing yourself seems straightforward. Take a personality test, pick some values, write in a journal. Done. But Carl Jung warned that self-understanding doesn't come through surface reflection. It comes through dissent. It comes through confronting what you've denied, feared, and pushed underground. And here's the disturbing part. You might feel self-aware, even successful, but deep inside, there's still a tension, a quiet unrest that whispers, "This isn't all of me." Jung believed that until we face our unconscious, the parts of us we've rejected or never explored, we remain incomplete. In this video, we'll unpack 4 of his most transformative insights. Why your shadow holds both the danger and the treasure you've avoided. How your persona became a polished mask that now hides your essence. What role your anima or animus plays in your emotional and relational struggles. And why individuation, the journey of inner integration, is your path to clarity and power. Stay with me until the end. This isn't about vague self-help advice. It's about finally beginning the honest, courageous work of meeting the self you've never fully seen. Carl Jung once wrote, "Everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is." At the center of Jung's work is a disturbing truth. The person you think you are is only part of the picture. Beneath the self you show the world lives a hidden dimension, your shadow. And the longer you avoid it, the more it controls you from the dark. The shadow is not just made of shame, rage, jealousy, or desire. It's made of everything you weren't allowed to be. Maybe you were punished for being too sensitive. Maybe your curiosity was called disrespect. Maybe your strength was seen as defiance. So you buried those traits, not because they were wrong, but because they were dangerous in the eyes of others. That's how the shadow forms. It's not evil. It's exiled potential. It's everything you had to hide to stay safe, loved, or accepted. But buried doesn't mean gone. It leaks out in moments you can't explain. That flash of resentment, that passive aggression, that strange satisfaction in someone else's failure. It shows up in self-sabotage, in toxic relationships, in your harshest self-criticisms. The shadow acts out when it's not acknowledged, because deep down it still wants to be seen. And unless you bring it into the light, it will shape your life while pretending to be fate. To face your shadow is to risk shattering the image you've carefully built. It's to admit, I'm not just the version of myself I like. And more than that, it's to feel the discomfort of becoming responsible for parts of you you'd rather ignore. But this is where the path begins. You start to recognize your projections, your judgments that reveal more about you than others. You begin to notice when a reaction is really a memory in disguise. And in doing so, something powerful happens. You stop being a passenger in your own psychology. The shadow doesn't disappear, but it becomes integrated. You can feel anger without being consumed by it. You can acknowledge desire without shame. You become capable of responding instead of just reacting. And this is the first crack in the mask, the first moment the real self begins to emerge. In a world driven by image, approval, and performance, Jung posed a haunting question. What if the version of you that others admire isn't actually you at all? He called it the persona, the polished identity we develop to function in society. It helps us survive. It helps us belong. But it can also become a prison. The persona isn't fake. It's just incomplete. It's the agreeable you, the confident you, the version your culture rewards. And it works until it doesn't. Because the longer you rely on your persona, the more disconnected you become from your raw, instinctive, vulnerable core. And when you mistake your persona for your true self, you begin to live reactively. You serve expectations, you seek approval, you maintain the image, while your soul withers beneath it. Nietzsche once wrote, "Every profound spirit needs a mask." He wasn't endorsing deception, he was revealing a tragic truth. The more complex and authentic you become, the harder it is for the world, and even yourself, to accept it. But that's where Jung offers a way through. Jung called it individuation, the slow, often painful integration of all your fragmented selves. It's not about becoming better, it's about becoming whole. You don't chase perfection, you dismantle illusion. You don't add traits, you retrieve the ones you abandoned. In the process, you become someone true, not in the moral sense, but in the ontological one. Real, undivided. Dostoevsky once said, "Man is afraid of the light, because the truth of who you are requires grief for the roles you've outgrown, for the comfort you must leave behind, for the stories you've had to rewrite. But in that grief is also freedom." Jung believed that each of us carries a hidden polarity. A man has within him the anima, the inner feminine, his emotional depth, intuition, and capacity for intimacy. A woman carries the animus, the inner masculine, her clarity, structure, and inner authority. When ignored, these figures don't disappear. They become projections. The man who's emotionally numb idolizes the mysterious woman. The woman who suppresses her assertiveness is drawn to controlling figures. The inner opposite gets cast onto the outer world. But when embraced, this polarity becomes a bridge to wholeness. The man reclaims his ability to feel deeply, to connect with vulnerability. The woman steps into her voice, her decisiveness, her grounded strength. It's like discovering a forgotten twin, a part of you that's been watching from the shadows, waiting to return. And the reunion brings clarity you didn't know you were missing. So ask yourself, are you wearing a face the world applauds, while your true self waits in silence? Are you haunted by urges, dreams, or patterns you don't understand? Is the voice inside you your own, or a mask shaped by history, pain, and fear? Individuation isn't an answer. It's a path, but one that leads somewhere real. You've spent your life becoming someone others could accept. But what if the next step isn't about becoming more, but about peeling back everything that was never truly you? Jung didn't just offer psychological insight. He offered a path to radical self-honesty, a journey of transformation that doesn't start with striving, but with surrender. Not the passive kind, the courageous kind. Shadow integration begins with awareness. Your shadow isn't your enemy. It's your history. It holds memories you repressed, needs you denied, strengths you were told to fear. And the first step isn't to fix it. It's to recognize it. When you feel triggered, stop blaming. Get curious. What old wound is being touched? What part of you is asking to be heard, not judged? That moment of awareness, that pause, is the beginning of psychological freedom. Releasing the social mask. The persona isn't evil. It once served you, but now it may be suffocating you. Notice where you shrink to fit. Notice when your voice feels scripted. Notice when connection feels like performance. And then, begin to choose differently. Maybe not loudly, maybe not all at once, but honestly. Truth isn't always dramatic. Sometimes, it's just finally saying what you mean. Honoring your inner polarity. That tension you feel in relationships, between closeness and independence, feeling and thinking, chaos and control, may not be about others. It might be your inner polarity, your neglected emotional or rational twin, trying to return. For men, this could mean embracing softness without shame. For women, it might mean claiming strength without apology. You don't need to become someone else. You need to stop exiling the parts of you that already exist. Integration is not a concept. It's a daily practice of listening, adjusting, and allowing. Walking toward wholeness. Individuation isn't an event. It's a process. It's not a trophy to win. It's a tension to hold. You'll lose people. You'll lose illusions. But you'll also gain something deeper. Alignment. The voice in your head begins to match the life you're living. You stop chasing approval. You stop fearing silence. And in its place, you find something steady and strong. A sense of self that doesn't need to be performed. You've spent years navigating the world. You've adapted, achieved, performed. You've played the roles you were taught to play. You've gathered respect, maybe even success. But behind it all, something quieter has been speaking. Not with noise, but with unease, and sleepless nights, in sudden doubts, in the eerie feeling that, no matter what you do, something essential is still missing. Carl Jung never promised comfort. He didn't offer steps to success. He offered a mirror and a challenge to stop living as a stranger to yourself, because knowing yourself isn't about introspection. It's about confrontation. It's about standing in front of your history, your contradictions, your unspoken fears, and refusing to look away. You don't get to truth by adding more layers. You get there by peeling them off, slowly, painfully, honestly. This isn't a self-improvement project. This is a return. So if you feel lost, it might mean you finally stopped pretending. If you feel afraid to see who you really are, that fear is the doorway. And if you're wondering whether it's too late to change, know this. The moment you begin to question the life you've inherited is the moment you begin to live a life you've chosen. And that's where the real work begins. Not to impress, not to escape, but to become internally whole, piece by buried piece. You may never be finished. You may never be certain, but you'll be real. And as Jung said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. If this resonated with you, like, share, and subscribe to The Existential Edge for more videos like this.